It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show, the first show in September. This is September 2nd. Didn't do one yesterday because it was Labor Day. September 2nd, this is the Charlie Block. Okay, briefly, John, I will tell you this story, and this is Nerdville kind of stuff. Once upon a time, when the stock market became more and more, and this is primarily the New York Stock Exchange, it became more and more infiltrated with programmatic trading. You know what I'm talking about with that, where
I do, yeah, sure.
Computers are firing off things. A couple of guys realized that there was latency with where the computer servers were for the various brokerage houses, okay? So what they did was they figured out that the closer they could get to the New York Stock Exchange, the less latency they would have from the time something was, it hit the trading floor or whatever and went onto the computer system. So what happened was, for a while, they were renting space in adjacent buildings to the New York Stock Exchange. That way they would have even less latency, and they were making trades before anybody else by sometimes fractions of a second, but they were beating the market by fractions of a second. And essentially, that was the big deal. They were trying to essentially, if they were a half second behind everybody else, they would lose their, strike price or strike point?
Yeah, strike price. Yeah. So would this have been like the 80s, Brad, or like early 90s?
90s into early 2000s. And
wow, that's amazing. I never heard that story before,
yes,
Brad.
and it was pretty fascinating because of the fact it got to be, but there was a whole transition because they used faster computers, and then somebody came with the idea, well, if we're physically closer to the New York Stock Exchange, because once again, electricity flies around at essentially light, pretty much the same. It's a little bit different, but 186,000 miles per second. So if you figure that and once again, when you're dealing with some of these things, it's nanoseconds, which is, a millisecond is a 1,000th of a second. I think a nanosecond is a millionth of a second. Sometimes the difference between hitting a strike price on a stock for a programmatic trade, the difference between you coming up with the best deal could literally be nanoseconds because
yeah, I believe that, Brad. And
it's pretty interesting if you read all this kind of nerd stuff about that. Okay, over the weekend, John, I want to discuss this because I find this fascinating. I heard them talking about, let me find this real quick.
Who's them?
This was on a couple radio stations I heard, okay? Have you ever heard of the fighting words doctrine?
No, huh?
Okay. This is interesting stuff because the reason this has come out recently is because of the fact what's happening in England. And let me bring up the official definition of the fighting words doctrine. This is actually a Supreme Court case that was settled in the United States back, and I believe in 1942 or something like that. And essentially what it involves is this is sort of a First Amendment kind of thing. The fighting words doctrine is a legal concept established in Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire, 1942, that allows for the restriction of certain speech under the First Amendment if the speech is likely to inflict injury or incite an immediate breach of the public's interest. Okay. In Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the conviction of Walter Chaplinsky, a Jehovah's Witnesses, for violating a New Hampshire law against offensive, derisive, or annoying speech. The court established the fighting words doctrine, ruling that certain categories of speech, such as obscenities, profanities, libel, and words likely to provoke an immediate breach of the peace, are not protected by the First Amendment. Did you know that?
No, so annoying talk is something that they could haul you away for, right, Brad?
Right. The incident involved Walter Chaplinsky, a Jehovah's Witness, and he was distributing religious literature on a public street in Rochester, New Hampshire, and was denouncing organized religion as a racket. And he was arrested because a hostile crowd gathered, and Chaplinsky was arrested for calling a town marshal a GD racketeer and a damned fascist. Chaplinsky was convicted under a New Hampshire law that prohibited using offensive, derisive, or annoying words to another person in a public place. The Supreme Court unanimous ruling, the Supreme Court in a unanimous decision upheld Chaplinsky's conviction. They said, writing for the court, Justice Frank Murphy introduced the concept of fighting words. He stated that there are, quote, well-defined and narrowly limited classes of speech that are not protected by the First Amendment. Now, the interesting thing about this is, through the years, this Supreme Court decision has been watered down. But what's really fascinating, if you see what's going on in England, this is the exact thing that has gotten out of hand in England, as far as I'm concerned, out of hand. There are people being arrested at various things where they're praying, like at abortion centers. The pro-life people have been arrested in England because they were praying. And that was determined to be fighting words.
Like offensive to some people if you're a secularist.
Right,
you would
exactly.
be offended by that.
If you were an atheist or a secularist, like you said, and if you showed up at an abortion clinic or anything and you were praying for people, that could be the reason to be arrested. Now, the interesting part of this is some people will say, well, isn't this the, crying, yelling out fire in a crowded theater? Yeah, to a certain extent it is, but it isn't. But it's interesting because the show I was listening to, they talked about this whole thing, and they talked about there's a resurgence in the United States of people trying to get this fighting words doctrine reinforced. The idea being that if you say something that I'm going to take you to court, I'm going to sue you for fighting words because of the fact that you said something that offends me. And to a certain extent, this is what's sort of happening in some of the transsexual kind of things is that, and even to the point where, matter of fact, there's an interesting interview. I don't know if you heard this or not. What's his name? Sebastian Gorka, who was in the Trump administration, was being interviewed on CNN. Have you heard this happening?
No, I haven't heard this.
And essentially, he got into a little bit of a fight when he was saying that, and I don't know if you've seen this meme that's been on the internet that shows all these mass shootings, and it shows the name of the person, the city that the mass shooting occurred in, and it tells you what their sexual preference is. And guess what? Almost all of them are transgender.
Yeah, I have seen that, Brad.
And that's what Sebastian Gorka talked about on CNN. And I can't remember who it was. Caitlin what's her name? Caitlin? What's the Caitlin lady's name? Do you know her?
I don't know.
CNN?
I don't watch it.
Okay. She argued with him, and he starts spewing all the examples. Like, well, what about this? 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 And then, over the weekend, did you hear about the Rosie O'Donnell apology, John? Did you hear about this one?
No, I didn't hear that. What happened?
John, where you been? All this news.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe that I have a life and wasn't paying attention to Rosie O'Donnell news over the weekend. What did Rosie have to say, Brad?
Last week, after the horrible shooting in Minneapolis, she went and did a video. Remember, she's not in the United States anymore. She's living in Ireland now because things have gotten...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Things have gotten so bad in the United States. She put out a video saying the shooter was MAGA. And the problem was he was a white supremacist and he was MAGA. And then after it came...
Oh, that's wildly incorrect.
Right. And then after it came out that couldn't have been any further from the truth, he was not a white supremacist. He was not a MAGA. Matter of fact, I think on one of the guns, wasn't that the story? On one of his guns, he had written "Murder Trump" or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
So she did an apology over the weekend. And she says, and it was a good quote. I should have pulled it. She says, when you mess up, you fess up. How about that, John?
That's really good. Yeah, what a mantra.
Right. When you mess up, you fess up because of the fact that, and she apologized because she was wrong. But of course, she didn't say why she was wrong. She didn't come out and say, yeah, the guy or gal was a transsexual, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, she can't say that. She can't come that clean.
See, now, the interesting thing about that is, why is it you can't do that? And the Tony Colombo flip test is, if this guy would have been a MAGA guy, or gal, whatever he was, she, has his Trump hat on and had on his gun instead of, he wanted to murder Trump. He says, I love Trump. And he was, yelling and screaming, Trump's the best, Trump's wonderful, as he's, doing this heinous act on these poor kids in the church in Minneapolis. Do you think that CNN would be talking about that? Do you think that would be the talking points that CNN would be using? And of course, MS Now, or whatever they call themselves.
Yeah, not only would it be on the news stations, but Netflix would have a documentary in the works
right.
about how this man had been poisoned by MAGA and it's masculinity's fault.
Man, I tell you what, sometimes they're just things that I just think to myself, I just don't believe some of this stuff. It just drives me nuts. Over the weekend, okay, I moved stuff and I hurt myself on Saturday moving stuff.
Do you want to tell us any details about moving or your injury?
Well, okay. I moved stuff on Saturday. I won't say who I moved, a family member. Then on Saturday night, I got a call from a family member about having a problem with their car. So I dropped what I was doing and I went to the aid of this family member who ran off the road a little bit and ran their wheel into a curb, and they didn't think there was anything wrong with the tire. So I showed up and with all my tire repair stuff and my tank of nitrogen and stuff like that, and the tire was ruined. So this particular family member limped the car home, followed this particular family member home. She got in her driveway, and then she was like most upset because of the fact that she couldn't go to bingo on Sunday because her car was broken. So, being the nice guy I am trying to help out my family members, you know what I did on Sunday, John?
Oh, no. You drove them to bingo.
No, I went to pick and pull.
Oh, there you go. That's a much better option, Brad. All right, so down there on Hall Street, right?
And first off, they've screwed up Hall Street. It's all done now. It used to be 4 lanes, two north, 2 south.
And they changed it. You talked about it before, Brad. You're not happy about it. Tell us why you don't like the change on Hall Street.
It's stupid. I mean, if you get 4, it's like what they've done in Clayton. I mean, like you get 4 lanes of traffic on Merrimack or Maryland, whatever it is. Now you got 1 lane of traffic going each direction. And if you get behind some slowpoke or a truck that's going through Clayton and stopping, like every 2 feet, you can't even pass anymore because they've got the cars that are parked out away from the curb because we have to have the bike lane. And John, I don't go to Clayton all that many times, but I'm there, several times a week. I've never seen anybody in the bike lane in Clayton. Ever. Never seen anybody.
In their defense, Brad, on Hall Street, in that demographic in North St. Louis County, when you think 63137, for example, you think of a lot of skinny white guys riding bikes on Hall Street, right?
Don't think that's... Matter of fact, it's
not the demographic in Riverview? Go ahead, Brad.
It's sort of interesting because when they... I don't know if they tore up part of the street or something like that. When they narrowed it down to 1 lane in each direction, there's no shoulders anymore. So I guess they tore the shoulders out because now it's
that's a good thing because there's no giant trucks that use Hall Street every day as a major part of their commute.
Right. Okay,
so you went to pick and pull. I stepped on your story, Brad. You went to pick and pull.
I take my battery-powered impact wrench, and I go to find a wheel and a tire for my family members so at least we can get their car back up and running. Because, when you have something happen over the weekend, on a holiday weekend, on Saturday, you can't find a garage that's opened on Sunday or Monday because you know why? All the guys and gals that work at those garages, guess where they're
down on their boat. They're at the Lake of the Ozarks, or they're in Florida, Brad, and it's not
exactly.
fair.
They're not here. So I go down to pick and pull, and now it's sort of depressing because it used to be $1 to get in. Now it's $2. Talk about inflation.
Well, that keeps the riffraff out. Okay, don't interrupt your own story, Brad. You take your hydraulic wrench, and what happens?
No, it's an electric impact wrench.
Okay, whatever.
So I zip the 5 lug nuts off this car, and as I'm doing this, a guy comes up to me, not speaking English, and he starts talking to me in a foreign language, which I don't understand. And I don't know what the hell he's saying. So his buddy comes up and says, "Hey, will you help us get a wheel off a car 2 rows down?" And I say, you know what? And quite honestly, on Sunday, I did not feel well. I was a little bit under the weather. Don't know why. My butt was dragging on Sunday, and I was just really sort of tired. And
what'd you tell him?
I said to the guy, is it the next row over? And they go, yes. And then a woman shows up, once again speaking another foreign language, and they talk between themselves. And the guy speaking English says to me, "Oh, it's 10 rows over."
Yeah, absolutely not. Nope.
You've been to the pick and pull lot before, right?
As a child, not as an adult.
It's not a small place. It's a huge place.
So how did you turn them down, Brad?
I said, not doing it. And it was about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning when I was there on pick and pull on Sunday morning. And so the guy starts, I guess, cussing at me in a foreign language. And I said to him, you want me to walk over 10 rows and unbolt that tire? First off, the rules. You go to pick and pull, you bring your tools with you. They had no tools with them. I don't know what they were thinking.
Of course not. Okay. Okay, that's a metaphor for immigrants broadly, but go ahead.
So I said, buy me lunch and I'll take the wheel off. And so they talk in their foreign language. I don't know what language they were speaking. And the guy finally says, "No, we're not buying you lunch." I go, "You know what? Not taking your wheel off." So I walked away.
Good for you, Brad. Good for you. Don't be used by people like that.
Well, I'm thinking to myself, and the crazy thing about it is they must be newbies at pick and pull because the way it works, if you come in there with, and I'm just like, I have this in the back of my car. I have a tool bag that has my impact wrench, has a spare battery, has all the different sockets for different size lug nuts and wheels and stuff like that. When you go into pick and pull, they inspect what you have in your toolbox. I don't know what they're looking for. And then when you leave, they inspect your toolbox.
Yeah, which is only fair, right?
Right, because they don't want you stealing stuff, putting in your toolbox.
Of course not.
Things like that. So the deal was, I was way in the East Jesus part of the pick and pull lot, and I thought to myself, I don't want to grab my tool bag and walk and with one hand grab my tool bag, and it's heavy because I got all my sockets and the wrench is very heavy.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want to roll you one hand roll my tire, the other hand. So I go. They stamp your hand when you go out. I went out. They checked my tool bag. Threw my tool bag in the back of my car. Went back in to take my wheel off, and I'm thinking to myself, my luck, somebody's taken it because I left it hanging there on the car, and the lug nuts were off. And the guy was standing right there, right next to my wheel. I'm thinking to myself, okay, is this going to be like a throwdown? And he says to me again, he says, can't you help us? And I go, I don't even have my wrench with me anymore. He says, where is it? I go, it's in my car. Can you go get it? No, I'm not helping you. So
Was he an old immigrant guy or a young guy?
I would say probably early to mid-20s. All of them were.
Oh, God, what a punk.
Yeah, all of them.
Does he think that he's just going to take advantage of somebody he thinks is a naive old man?
That's me. Yeah, I mean,
no, I know, but you're not naive, Brad. I'm glad that you told him no, because you know what? What I love, Brad, is that if he was one row over or really close, you being you would have helped them like out of good faith.
Right.
But you got to set boundaries for yourself.
But see, I was in row 25 and they said this was in row 26. And then when his other buddy came over and say it was in row 34, which once again, figure out the distance in rows. The cars are like, side by side by side. And each row is, I don't know how long. And depending upon where the row is, some of the rows have like 40 and 50 cars in them. I mean, we're talking, it could have been like a couple thousand. I mean, that lot there is huge. It's a huge lot. I would say from one end of the lot to the other, it's easily a quarter to a third of a mile. I mean, because if you know some of the places there in Hall Street, there's nothing small on Hall Street. Everything.
Yeah, it's just they're giant lots.
Right. Everything is huge. As a matter of fact, right across from where the pick and pull is, and I think it's sort of interesting, they have the port right there for the river boats, and they're pulling the coal off, and I watched the big thing, spray coal all over the riverfront there, which is sort of interesting. So I did not help the guy out, John. Am I in trouble with you?
Absolutely not. And in fact, I would have been disappointed had you told the story and you, to use a Yiddish term, you had schlepped across all those rows at your advanced age and declining physical health to help a stranger who was clearly not appreciative.
Well, plus...
And by the way, doesn't it say something about the man that he wouldn't even be willing to buy you lunch in exchange for your work? It says everything about him.
I didn't say I wasn't going to go to have lunch at Tony's. If you could give me $5 and said, hey, Brad, I know you like the value meal at Wendy's. Here's lunch. Oh, man, I'd be happy. But I was just feeling like my butt was dragging on Sunday. I mean, from part of what I did on Saturday, but that's a whole other story. Won't get
now,
into
how did it end? You were able to strip was it a wheel or a tire? What'd you strip?
I took the whole thing, wheel and a tire, and I went over to my.
And do you mind if I ask how much it ran you?
$41.
Okay, so that's a pretty good deal, right?
Because it was a steel wheel, an aluminum wheel would have been more, $41. But it actually should have cost me $48. But you know what, John?
What'd you do, Brad? Did you have a discount?
I have the frequent flyer discount at Pick and Pull. So when I gave him my phone number, he goes, oh, yeah, that's $7 off. So it cost me $41.
And then the rest of the drive home, you booted up the steel wheelers, and you realized that you're stuck in the middle with me.
Doc, and I don't think it's the steel wheelers. It's not steel.
Let's Google it.
It's not steel
Brad,
wheelers.
Maybe you could ask a sings stuck in the middle with you.
Stuck in the middle. It's Steelers wheel. That's what it is. Steelers, not steel wheel. It's Steelers wheel. Stuck in the middle with you.
Well, forgive me for that, Brad.
John,
that song was written. It looks like it was published more than 5 years before I was born. So I'm gonna play the Gen X card there.
John?
Yes, Steelers Wheel is the name of the group.
Steelers Wheel. We've exceeded our time. My GPS clock is saying, it's blinking at me saying, must go, must go, must go.
What a new era in our relationship, Brad. I love it.
John,
I'm so glad we spent this time together. I missed you this weekend, Brad.
I'm so glad we spent this time together. You know what that's from?
I have no idea. Barbara Streisand.
Carol Burnett show. She would always sing that at the end of her show.
Okay.
I'm so glad we had this time together. Okay.
And we're over, Brad. We're over according to GPS.
Say goodbye, John.
See you tomorrow, Brad.